Let me see if this works. Typical tribe talk purpose. No changes here, and I believe almost everybody has been here before. Pretty sure. Dialogue with rider coaches to enhance our communications for development of an improvement culture, with the caveat that this is a completely independent event, not sponsored by any organization, regardless who may show up and add input. Now, etiquette doesn't change, except tonight it's very important that if I drop off, go ahead and continue the conversation and I'll get back in as quickly as I can. Tonight I wanted to talk a little bit about diversity and inclusion, as I talked in the preview this last week. And the specific instructions here is that we're going to have a courageous conversation. And I want everybody to please communicate respectfully tonight, because I'm sure this can go awry really quick. Maybe not with this group, but if somebody feels uncomfortable, that's part of the conversation. And being a little bit vulnerable and understanding helps. So just a little forewarning here. And so with that, a quick definition of diversity. Would anybody like to read that?
The definition of diversity is the condition of having or being composed of different elements. Variety, especially the inclusion of different types of people, such as different races or cultures in a group or organization. Programs intended to promote diversity in schools, or an instance of being composed of different elements or qualities, an instance of being diverse, a diversity of opinion.
So, just being unique is being diverse. But typically, when we start talking about race, gender, sexual orientation, things of that nature, the conversation gets a little bit tense, because we're just waiting for something bad to happen or to offend somebody, or maybe not offend anybody and just speak our mind while we're offending people. And so that's why I think diversity can be a difficult topic to talk about. Can somebody read inclusion, and feel free to skip anything you don't want to say.
Inclusion is the act of including, the state of being included, something that is included, the act or practice of including students with disabilities or the general student population. Inclusion refers to a variety of integration approaches, but the goal is to blend special education students into the traditional classroom. The act or practice of including and accommodating people who have historically been excluded as because of their race, gender, sexuality, or ability. More than there, academic libraries have traditionally struggled to address problems of equity, diversity, and inclusion. The low representation of people of color in the library staff has been a particular shortcoming, despite many initiatives to attract minority staff to the field. And I'll let everybody else read the rest of that one. That sounds more of a statements from other individuals.
As they are. Thank you, Dennis. I appreciate that. So, when you talk about inclusion, you're talking about diversity. And a lot of times including those who may not normally be included into that culture or society or whatever it may be. So I didn't know quite where to go with this. I thought through it a lot, but didn't have a lot of help. So I just thought I'd bring a couple questions online and see what everybody thought, and then go from there in the discussion. So how do you feel diversity and inclusion are connected with rider education?
Carol from St. Louis. I think that we have a diverse group of students that come through our classes, and just treat them the same way you want to be treated. That's the important thing about diversity. Treat them the same way you want to be treated, and how you expect them to treat you.
You know, I learned more about diversity while I was in the military, uh, especially after all the race riots that they had in the military. Uh, because the military said, hey, you're all going to class, you're going to learn about the other person that you don't like or you don't think you like. So I've learned that when I go into a classroom or I go to talk to students and stuff, I don't look at color. I don't really look at if you're a male or female. I look at you as a student pretty much. And that's kind of like what you just said. You treat them all alike. I had an incident here just not more than 4 weeks ago where a student felt that they were being pointed out because of their race. And that's the first time in a long time that I've ever had that happen to me. So I've been doing a lot of soul searching on my part and still believe that that wasn't so much me as it was as today's society of what things are going on right now. So it's hard to deal with people of different races who come to you in your class, and even though you're trying to be as diverse and as you're all the same to me, and we're all on the same level and playing field, and somebody else has a quote point that they want to make because they feel that their race is better than everybody else. I hope that made sense. But
It does, Sal, and I appreciate your perspective and speaking up about that, because the military seems to be one of the places in the United States that is least likely to suffer some of the discriminatory practices, although it is not 100% perfect by any means. Anybody else? Thoughts?
I guess I can thank the military from my perspective on that a little bit, because I am a Navy brat, and Dad basically told us, you treat everybody with respect. And he did not, there were many holidays where we had officers and enlisted at our table, and no one was treated any differently, no matter what their rank was. And that's one of the things that Dad didn't make us learn were the ranks. He just said, you treat everybody with respect. And I give kudos to him for that.
Thank you, Carol.
That's one of the things I learned in the military as well. I spent 23 years between the active and the National Guard and the military, and there's a lot I learned with the military because of the people we had. And just like Carol said, treat everybody like the way you want to be treated, no matter who they are, where they're from, or what their nationality or skin color is.
Thank you,
So,
Dennis.
hey, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is Belinda from Tuscaloosa. I have to say, as a rider coach, I have enjoyed meeting all the different people I've come in contact with in the last 2 years. Like I just literally said this to the students today, like my class that I had this weekend. When we put that helmet on, you know, in that class, we're all the same, right? All my students are the same. They're people that want to learn to ride motorcycles or want to, you know, go upon this new adventure. And it really doesn't matter. I mean, I have met so many amazing people that are so different than each other in the last 2 years that I am just completely blessed by it. And I mean, I've had rappers to small, like 14-year-old junior high kids, and I have absolutely loved every single one of them that I've met. And so I don't know, when you say has it connected to writer education, I mean, I think it's, I kind of, like I said, my viewpoint is when we put the helmet on and we're in class, that's all that matters, is that they're all there to learn this one skill. And yes, we love and I admire I love the stories that they bring, but ultimately it all connects us together anyways, right? Is that we want to learn this amazing skill.
Yeah, Belinda, I wholeheartedly agree with you on what you just said there, because you're right in the sense that when people come into the classroom for that class, doesn't matter who they are, they're there because they want to be there, not because they have to be there. And you treat everybody with respect and get them to help them get through the class. And when I start seeing that smile on their face after about the third, fourth, or fifth exercise, doesn't matter who they are, and I know we're making the point and getting to them about what this is all about.
That is so true. Good statements, both of you.
Hey guys, Sarah Kay here from Wisconsin. How is everybody today?
Good.
That's good.
Well,
I love what everybody's saying, and I have to agree with Belinda and Sal that I love the diversity that we see in the classes over many years. But I really wonder. I too, like Sal, have been doing a lot of soul searching. I wonder if I do treat everybody the same. As a woman and as a little person, a lot of times in my lifetime, I have felt diminished in some capacity in whatever learning environment I was in. And I wonder if it allows me to treat a lot of the women in class with a little more, I don't know if it's understanding or if it's, Dennis, didn't you say that everybody's there because they want to be there and they're all smiling? Was that you, Dennis?
Yes, it was me, and I said that because usually after about 3 or 4 exercises on the bikes, they're starting to get it.
Yeah, and I love that smile, but don't you occasionally see I want to say every year at least, I see a woman in the class, it's usually a woman, who's there not because she wants to be there, but because somebody pushed her, and it was usually a male who pushed her, her husband, her boyfriend, to be in the class so that she could ride next to them instead of with them on their bike. And I don't know, I get this feeling that occasionally I get a female in the class that isn't really there because they want to be there. They got pushed into being there. And I'm starting to think, because of what you said, Sal, I'm starting to think I don't treat everyone the same. I don't know, I've been doing a lot of soul searching about that lately.
Well, Sarah, what you said there about the woman coming in with her husband, boyfriend, or whatever, and I've seen where they both come in. He comes in and takes the class with her, even though he's been riding a long time. It comes on to the point where I've even seen this, where the woman even does better in the class than he does.
And how quickly do you separate those two, Dennis?
I put them on either side of the classroom and towards the end of each group.
Exactly, Carol. Thank you.
You have to do that, especially if there's 2 brothers or a father, son, husband, wife, and so forth. You have to do that.
Yeah. So Sarah, I'll challenge your thinking on that. I don't think it's the diversity and the inclusion thing. I don't think it's about, okay, how can I explain this? I don't think it's about the way we treat people, right? Because we do have to, when we have the women, so that's when we ask them, why are they there? Like when we're in our introduction and we ask, they're buddies, they're partnered up, right? And they ask their buddy, why are you here? And we get that, I kind of want to be yeah, I like being a passenger, but you know, my husband's really encouraging me to be here. Then we automatically know that yes, we are going to have to. I mean, and the word is treat them a little different because we already have to be super aware. Like our coach tingles go off, right? Like motivation is the reason they're there.
Keep a
So
closer eye
we
on
may
them.
have to give them a little bit of kit gloves just to see, but then also that may be their way of saying, please, dear God, let me out of this, right? So we have to be, number one thing, I mean, and this is just me speaking from my trainings and everything, life and all that stuff. We have to be aware of those biases. But yes, we do treat people differently, but we have to be aware of that. And it's about treating them differently, but equally at the same time, right? They're all students. They all come from novice, but they all have their different backgrounds of why they're there. And we do treat them differently because we are females. We're a little bit more sensitive at times. Some of us, trust me, I've met some women that are like, get your shit together, you know, and I'm like, I love you. Please teach me to be that way. But I think we do treat people differently as long as we're aware of why, what is the motivation about treating this woman with a little bit more sensitivity and then this woman with a little bit more strictness, this male with more, you know, with a little bit more sensitivity, and this male with a little bit more, you know, toughness. So I think we do treat people differently, and that's just human nature, but we have to be aware of how we're treating them and why are we treating them that way, right? Is it out of good motivation or is it out of negativity?
I
And
have
so,
I have to agree with a lot what you just said, because I had several female students who were in my class, and they were there because, just like you said, their husbands or boyfriends are saying, why don't you go learn how to ride? And then discovering after talking with them, it's not so much they want to learn how to ride because they're just not really voicing it. They're just like saying, oh, they're pushing it off on the boyfriend or the husband saying, well, they're telling me I have to come. And coming to find out, no, they want to learn because they want to know what it's like to be up there on the handlebars versus back on the riding seat. So I start them out as a little bit different, but try to encourage them and try to open their eyes as to what they're about to do. And by the time, just like the other gentleman said, by the time we get them out on the motorcycle and they get done with the third exercise and on their way to the fourth exercises, I got smiles and giggles out of them because they are now experiencing. Although it was a little bit different treating them, but it was more, like you said, motivation and inspiring them to understand what they are just about to embark upon. At least that's the way I look at it.
And to add on to that, you have both. We do see both sides of that, where they've been pushed into it and they really don't want to be there. And those are the ones you have to be really cautious with, I found, because those are the ones that are probably going to get hurt if they are not, if somebody doesn't spend that little extra attention with them, or that little extra amount of time with them to help them figure out that if you want this, you can do it. But if you really don't want this, you're probably not going to be successful with it.
Agreed. That's agreed.
I had that same situation when I went through RCP more than 18 years ago. I was out in Olathe, Kansas when I took the class, and a student that was in that class, all of us rider coach trainers or trainees, if you want to call it, were, teaching parts of the class. But anyway, this individual lady, was there to take the class, and she ended up losing control of the bike and crashed, and she ended up going home after that. But she told the instructor there at the time, the only reason I'm here is because my husband wanted me to be here. And, about a half hour later, after she went home, her husband showed up. So I think the you know, the chief instructor there at the time actually talked to him about it. I don't remember what was specifically said, but you know, everybody gets the idea that some people come there just because their spouse or significant other wants them to take it.
So I think we've kind of beat the spouse, male and female, you know, asking to go to a course thing to death. What other things are out there that we should think about in diversity and inclusion?
I don't think motorcycling is very diverse at all, much less in terms of rider training.
One of the things that I've seen happen in the past is people with different backgrounds or cultural diversity, you have to be very, very cautious and careful how you treat them and how it's perceived by the other people in the class, and, you know, singling them out in some way that might embarrass them because of their background or their culture. And you have to be, you know, it's a really fine line you have to walk when you have students that do have a very, very different background.
Okay, I'm gonna quick go through a few of these questions because you guys have pretty much answered them, I believe. So what are the areas where we need to improve diversity and inclusion? I mean, we talked about how we deal with a lot of things, but where is there a need for improvement?
Well, you need to understand diversity is an audience sometimes made up of different races. You need to understand a little bit about your audience in that particular, and I can only call it a race, okay? Because, and I'm drawing this information off of the incident that I had with this gentleman because of the statements that he made that his race was new to cycling and they didn't know anything about cycling, which my comeback for that was, you're wrong with your information is not up to date, because your particular race has been in cycling just as long as Harley Davidson has been putting out motorcycles. So sometimes your group challenging you about your diversity isn't always informed on their own race, because they feel that they're being left out of learning about, in this case, motorcycles, but they don't really want you to provide them that instruction and make it, which they feel that they are being looked down upon. And in my case, I bent over backwards trying to provide that person with the best education and understanding about how to ride that motorcycle safely and how to operate it. But it doesn't always work, because that person just doesn't, that person is stuck on, you are looking down at me, and that's all there is to it. So maybe that's where I did my soul searching, trying to figure out if I was providing as much as I could for this individual to understand. And was I making it too detailed? Was I making it too instructive? Was I just, how could I simplify it? And to me, it didn't seem like I was getting there.
One of the things that I think we need to work on is improving our ability to overcome our personal biases towards different ethnic groups or cultures. Predisposed ideas that you go into with, and sometimes they come out during class and you just don't even realize it.
Christopher, I will second that, and I'll say this is my confession time. I'm very aware of my biases, and I have to say, all right, when I get to the door, I'm checking this bias out. I have to, because I have to be aware when we have female riders that are part of a property-owned club, motorcycle clubs that come in and take come and take the classes. I really have to check my bias. Like, I'm very super aware that I'm like, look, they're just women that want to learn to ride motorcycles. And and that was a heart issue for me. Like, I had to really work on that because I've fought so hard against that for so long, that now that I'm in contact with a lot of women, I've taught a lot of women in our area in the last year that are their significant others are in motorcycle clubs, and they're all, have been changed by it. And I mean, my bias had to be checked at the door, and I have been absolutely astonished by these women. And I mean, I tell you what, they checked me hard, and I was just like, wow, all right, Belinda, time to grow. Like Sal was saying, soul searching, right? And heart searching. And I became super aware, which I think, when the question is where areas that we need to improve on, like Christopher said, be aware of those biases. As soon as you feel them, confront them inside your heart and confront them inside your soul. See where that's coming from. Where do you need to do your work so that you can be the best for your students?
I had something to add to this. How often do you ask your students of different cultures and races questions about their cultures and races? I said, I had a student last Sunday who had a shirt on that was Buffalo Soldiers. I didn't know what it was. I learned from my student, because she gave me a brief 5-minute history lesson on the Buffalo Soldiers. Ask your students. They will open up to you. And by asking them, you're showing interest in them, and you're also looking into and learning more about them, and that will help you in teaching.
One of the things along that line I've noticed over the years, that whenever I've had a student in my class that is an immigrant, whether they be from China, India, Pakistan, or wherever, and they have a heavy accent, I try to be respectful, and I ask them, are you very well versed in the English I could say the words English language.
Unlike you.
Yeah, thank you, Carol. I appreciate that. Don, you're laughing too.
Because I do the same thing, Dennis. That's what I love about this group.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying here. You get those students that come into the class, because I had one student several years ago that failed the written portion because he didn't understand the questions good enough, because he was an immigrant. And I thought, he said he knew the English language well enough, but did he really understand enough to pass the test? So on the slide, I took him aside and actually read the questions to him, trying to help him understand, and maybe said in different words they had the same definition and meaning, to where, yeah, he ended up passing. Something to help out with, the diversity there with the particular student.
So let me take this a slightly different direction, because we've been talking a lot about students. What about us as rider coaches? Are we a diverse group?
Yeah, some of us are old and some of us are not. Be careful, Carol.
I would say that
one.
we could. I mean, just look at the Zoom people here now. I mean,
yeah, it's a bunch
older
of guys. It's a bunch of old white
guys,
women,
and very few women.
That's a great point. Thank you for pointing that out. That really is that's a really great point there. I really wish we had more diversity in our area. I think, yeah, we only have a few women, and they're mostly, the rest of them are all white men. And but I think that's changing too. I mean, I think and I really truly do say it's because of the new MSF, the new update. I mean, like I said, from everything that I've heard from the older curricula that was even the one that was right before us, there's a difference in it by the way that they are more student-centered and person-centered. And so I think that attracts more women, first off, and I think it kind of steps out and challenges the military style. And so I kind of credit that to the MSF new update. Like I said, that's the only one I've ever been trained on, but I do know of the past ones because I've had plenty of coaches tell me, well, you used to do it this way. And so I kind of credit to MSF. That's why we're becoming more diverse now.
I'd say in my area, there's a huge lack of diversity. I generally teach in Madison, Wisconsin, and we have a big university here. And I have a large number of students who are from India and from Asia. But our teaching cadre is mostly old white guys, a few younger white guys, and a few women. But we have no non-Caucasian instructors at all in Madison, yet, I don't know, maybe 30% of our population is non-Caucasian, and it would be really nice to have a more diverse instructor cadre to at least start to come to match the student population we have.
I'm not frozen, I'm still listening, and I think that's a valid point. And so how do we become more diverse? How do we include different ethnicities and different cultures into being rider coaches? Because one of the things I hear all the time from program administrators and people that I'm talking to that are having problems finding rider coaches, all you have to do is go to an IRETS or that kind of function, and you'll see the same demographics that we're talking about here. So how do we become more diverse and inclusive with different ethnicities and cultures? See, Dennis, I can't speak either.
I think it was kind of, we talked a little bit about that on last Wednesday, I think, in the happy hour. We recruit our students, right? When we have those awesome writers, no matter what culture, whatever, but especially are the ones that are a different culture than us, man, we recruit them. Like, we're like, hey, you're our future writer coach, man. Look at you ride, man. I can't wait to be a writer coach with you. And I'm going to make sure I keep up with you and let you know when that next RCP happens in our area. I think recruiting from our students, our diverse students, is really the easiest way to do it, right? I mean, that, like I said, that's my opinion.
But do they always have to be the best student in the class to be a good instructor?
No.
Oh, no. I just say, man, you're going to be a great future writer coach. They may be running up off on my toes, but I'm like, man, you're going to be a great writer coach one day.
But I do know people who that's who they look at as just the best in the class. But it doesn't always have to be the best person in the class to try and promote. I usually put it out to all the students. If you're interested in the program, see me after the class. And that way it's their choice. And I really let that invitation to everybody.
One of the things that I think we probably could do better is, as rider coaches, we see these students and how they perform during the class, and we offer the option to apply to become a rider coach or a range aide or whatever the process is in your jurisdiction. But what if we said to that student, pulled them aside, I think you're really, really a good match for our program, and I'm going to put my name behind you, and I'm going to say I think you should be contacted by our program administration to become that, versus just saying, okay, go ahead and do that. You know, if we put it out there that we saw this student that was just phenomenal and had a great personality and was really easy to work with, and the other students worked well with them, wouldn't that go further towards getting somebody in?
What are your thoughts, people?
Well, I'm sitting here trying to think about if you're inviting somebody to become a rider coach or inspiring them to become a rider coach, are we looking at male or female, or are we looking at race? And I would say no. Most of the time we are looking at the ability of that person. So I guess I'm an old person, I guess, and I've learned in not to really look at color of skin or male or female. I am looking at your abilities to do the job. If I feel that you can do that, and I invite you, I'm giving you the respect, and I am open enough to bring you in the fold and say, okay, let's work on this together. So maybe I'm kind of missing the point as far as because I'm not really looking at race so much. Now I will say that I am looking for a female rider coach, because I feel that females seem to connect better with female versus the males, who are sometimes a little more gruff, and they don't feel that they're not on the same level playing field, maybe. So
I think you're right on point, Sal. I think you look for the qualities of a good rider coach up front. And then if there is something that makes them stand out as desirable for a program, whether they be a good female or someone who is of color that you aren't currently representing appropriately within the population, then maybe that is an additional good attribute to look at. But yeah, you don't want somebody that can't ride, because then you're defeating the purpose in the first place. And maybe, you know, I like what Christopher said about, you know, acknowledging a good rider. Hey, you're a really good rider. I see the potential for you to be a rider coach in the future if you so desire. And so acknowledge how good they are, but also check their motivation to come back for a BRC2 or some different course to prove that they have the motivation as part of that characteristic as well. And then reaching out and, you know, acknowledging them through a program, I think that's a very valid point. It makes somebody feel wanted, and we all want to feel wanted, don't we? And if you feel wanted, you know, then you're more apt to be a part of the group. So I had an example here from Star Trek, but it's like a 10-minute movie, and I think that'd be boring at this point. But also wanted to look at, you know, we've talked a little bit about cultures. Cultures are multiple. And the first step of cultural sensitivity is recognizing that we are all different, and that there is a different array of cultures out there, and it doesn't really matter what culture you come from if you have the characteristics that makes you a part of our culture. And we've alluded to that by saying that in our community, once you put that helmet on, who cares? You're a rider, right? So I'm going to skip the Star Trek thing here. And we're going to do a little exercise, if you don't mind. There's a group of people an array of people, if you will, on the screen right now. And so we're going to play a game of Guess Who. So to do this, we're going to use the chat window tonight. I want you to pair up with somebody, if you would, please. You know, just send them an instant message or a chat, or talk to them directly and say, you're going to be my partner. And then we're going to play Guess Who. So one individual will ask the other questions that must be answered by yes or no to determine or guess who you're describing in this group of pictures. And I'll give you about, I don't know, 5 minutes or so to kind of play around with this. And when I see everybody get that bored look on their face, or when I see traffic stop on the group chat, then I'll carry forward. So pair up with somebody, play Guess Who, have a person in mind, and ask yes questions that must be answered by yes or no in the chat.
Will someone play partner lotto with me?
I will, Laura.
Yeah, but does that mean that I have to ask the questions then?
Yes, because I'm trying to guess who you're talking about or describing.
Hey, Carol and Belinda, can you guys both hear me? This is Sarah from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Okay, we're all three of us are partners. So who's going first?
All right. Do y'all want to do it? I'll just open. You want to just do everyone in chat, or I don't know how to do 2 people in private chat. I don't know how to break out into a group.
Me either, and I'm typing really slowly, so I thought I'd just ask.
Hey, Dawn, is there a way to put us in a group for 5 minutes?
Boy, you don't want much, do you? I can.
I was just wondering if there was a way, because I know sometimes you have to set that up beforehand with Zoom, and you know when I have to do mine, I have to do it sometimes beforehand. But I didn't know if you could, like, with you being the host, if you could like shove the 3 of us into a room.
Well, here's I can put 2 people in a room, but it becomes completely random in that point.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, hey guys, you know what, Carol and Sarah, if you don't mind, I'll privately send you my phone number. I'll text you on my phone number. And we'll play that way. Does that sound good?
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
I think.
Hey,
Laura's
Chris,
the
do you have a
co-host.
partner yet?
Laura's the co-host. I'm sure she can handle it.
I'm working with Laura right now.
All right. Chris Horton, have you got Mike? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I got Mike.
All right.
Wait.
And about another 3 minutes on this to just play this low game. Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
It's way done. Okay, Belinda and Carol, I really can't type that fast. So I'm going to ask you both a question, okay? Who looks most like a doctor from all these people to you two? I'd like to know. I picked out 2 people that look most like a doctor to me.
Let's see. Now, don't forget, I live in Birmingham, Alabama, so we're pretty diverse. We have a lot of doctors in Birmingham. I don't know. Maybe the lady in the hat, the yellow hat, and the guy on the far right.
Wow, Carol said guy in the far right and the guy in the lower left. And I think the 2 doctors look like, yeah, I'd give you the woman in the yellow hat on the upper left. And I think the man with the glasses second from the lower right. I think he looks like a doctor too. All right, what about somebody else? What about a teacher?
All right, let's stop this. What I'm
Wait,
gonna do
I was just having fun, Don.
I know, I'm a killjoy. I'm gonna stop this share and we're gonna watch a quick video, okay? And you gotta let me know, make sure that you're getting it.
I'm Michael Norton. I'm an associate professor.
Oh, what a pain. And can you see it?
There it is.
Professor at Harvard Business School and co-author of the new book, Happy Money, The Science of Smarter Spending.
Okay.
I want to talk to you today about a piece that we have in the July-August issue of Harvard Business Review. But before I tell you what's in that piece, I first want to ask you to play a game with me. You're looking at an array of faces right now, and I'm going to ask you to play a version of the game that you may have played as a little kid that was called Guess Who. And if you remember that game, you and a partner both had faces in front of you. One of you had a face, and the other person had to guess the face you were looking at from that array of faces. I want you to play this game with me right now. Grab a partner and pick a face that your partner is going to have to guess. And the only rule is your partner can only ask you questions that you answer with the words yes or no. Pause this video and take a few minutes to play the game. When you're done playing the game, come back, hit unpause, and I'll tell you more about the research that we've conducted.
Played.
So you finished the game. How did it go? What kinds of questions did your partner ask you? Maybe they asked, is this person smiling or not? Or is this person wearing a hat or not? Or maybe they asked a question like, is this person black or not? But if they did, that would be quite unusual because in the research that we've done, we find people are very, very reluctant to ask about race when we have them play the exact game that you just played. Why are people reluctant? It appears as though they feel that by asking about race, it might signal that they care a lot about race, and it might even signal that they might be a racist. We find in our experiments that even though the array was half white and half black, and asking the question, is the person white or black, a very useful tool for narrowing down the faces, people are really, really reluctant to ask about that question. And in fact, in another version of the game, we find that if we have people play with a black partner, they become even more unlikely to ask about race because they're even more worried that they might appear to be biased when they do that. And there's an even worse outcome because people who avoid asking about race, even though they are trying to do so to look as though they don't care about race, end up looking more uncomfortable and more biased. I think the dynamics in this game, which you and your partner just experienced, really suggest how complicated and interesting the dynamics are when we talk about race in contemporary America. We also tried some different versions of this game. In one of them, we actually asked not grown-ups to play the game, but for children to play what is, in the end, a children's game. We wondered when we had them play the game you just played whether the same thing might happen. What we found is that older children, by the time they were 9 or 10, actually stopped asking about race in the game. They'd already learned that maybe it's not wise to ask about race. But the kids who were younger, who were 7 and 8, who weren't so concerned about those social norms yet, in fact, were more likely to ask about race. And as a result, they ended up beating the older kids, performing better on the game. We tried one other version of the game. We ran a version of the game that's very much like the one you played again, but with one difference. In this case, all of the faces were white, but each picture had, in the lower corner of the picture, a white or a black dot. And we wanted to see if it's not about race, if it's not about is this person white or black, but more is this dot white or black, if now people would be very willing to use color because it could be so useful for guessing the face. And that is exactly what we see as well. So if it's race, people will not ask the question black or white, but if it's the color of a dot, like the color of paint on a wall, people are perfectly happy to ask about white or black. And it really suggests that it's the social dynamics surrounding race that make us so uncomfortable talking about color. We know in everyday life, people often struggle to describe someone in the workplace who may be of a different ethnicity. And while the motivation comes from a good place, which is, I don't want to be or appear racist, it ends up impeding communication. And organizations that are savvy realize that a good solution to race is not to avoid talking about race, which, as you saw when you played the game, can impede communication between people, but actually acknowledge race openly. One of the things that we see when we talk to companies that are forward-looking in this space is they're being open and honest about racial differences between workers and among workers. Thanks for taking time to play our game. You can learn more about this research in the piece that Evan Applebaum and I wrote, which will appear in the July-August issue of Harvard Business Review. I'm Michael Norton, Associate Professor at...
the book Happy Money, The Science of Smarter Spending.
So
I'm Michael Norton. I'm an Associate Professor at Harvard.
What are your thoughts about what we just watched?
Was it subtitled in Russian or another Eastern European language I don't know?
I don't know. I couldn't figure out how to get rid of the closed captions.
I think it was very interesting, though, that I think that we do shy away from talking about either black or white or brown or green, in that we kind of just look at each other and look at what is out there and say, okay, let's go. So that's kind of interesting that the social dynamics is that we don't really want to be seen, just like he said. Well, you know, let's talk about black issues. Let's talk about brown issues. And if I do, am I a racist? Then I am trying to cause or stir the pot. Interesting.
My husband and me recently had a really frank conversation with a good friend of ours, and he's black. And we had it was really good just to sit down and ask him questions and be very frank. And if you have the opportunity, I would suggest that we each do that, because it can be so insightful.
So I'm kind of glad you brought that up, Carol, because almost a month ago, I sat down and had a great conversation with Chris Perry. And we discussed many of these issues and wondered why it is so difficult to talk about in public and why it makes people feel so uncomfortable. And so I want to get one more slide in, I think, and then I'm going to share something with everybody. What do you think about this slide? Are we complex?
Yes, I think we are all complex in one way or the other.
The hardest question for me to answer is, where am I from? Because I grew up in a military family. I don't know where I'm from. I'm from all over. Good example of being complex.
Absolutely. Bill Murphy just did a nice share for everybody there.
On my ancestry, it has like a blue
So I'm going to tell you a quick story, and it's kind of how Chris and I started having this discussion. And I do come from a military background. I'm retired Army, 21 years. But about 6 years into my Army life, I took some time off and I went to college. The deal with going to college was that I had to go to a historically black university or college in order to get a scholarship, a 4-year scholarship. So I went to Central State University, Wilberforce, Ohio, a historically black university. I was part of a population. We called ourselves the 2%ers. Can anybody guess why we called ourselves the 2%ers?
Well, because 2% of you were white.
Yeah, exactly. A few kickers on the football team and ROTC guys and a few locals that found it a cheap way to go to school. But, you know, of the population of about, I think it was close to 8,000 students, about 2% of us were white. And so Chris asked me, you know, what was it like as a white person going to a black university? And I tell you, it changed my life. It changed my life before I even started at the university. Because when I first got there, I had to set up my bedroom, my dorm room, and I lived on campus for all 4 years. No background. And when I went into the town of Xenia, Ohio, which is predominantly white, predominantly agriculture at that time, when I went to the store and got all the equipment for living in a dorm room, as I went to check out, the individual who was checking me out, nice, older white lady, we started having a really great conversation. Oh, you're going to college? That's neat. Yeah, I'm setting up the dorm room. You know, all the pleasantries of you know, a college student, finding out who the new town people are. Oh yeah, so where are you going to school? Well, I'm going up to Central State University. And in that moment, her face changed. She stopped talking to me. She was rude. And from that moment on, I never went back to that store again, because I felt what it felt like to be a minority, one, by going to a school where I was only 2%, but more importantly, the discriminatory effects of being associated with a minority. In this case, I was being singled out for being a white guy in a black university by white folk. And so it kind of changed my perspective on what racism really is and how those biases can affect you regardless of what you look like. Once people have those biases, they have a tendency to carry on. So didn't mean to bore you, but it was a great conversation piece for me and Chris Perry to get to know each other a little bit better. And I hope he doesn't mind that we were discussing this. And that's where this whole thought about diversity and inclusion, specifically talking with rider coaches about it, came forward. So, any thoughts or questions thus far? Now that we're
Well, I really appreciate your story there, because you hit home for me, because I'm Mexican American. And in the city of California, the little town called Upland, California, is pretty much all white. So being the person of my color, which is brown, going to a school that's dominantly white, experience the same thing you just explained. And I've lived my entire life that way. And then it only changed for me after I joined the military, and they explained to me and helped me understand between the races, not racist, but the races of black, white, and yellow, and whatever color, and how we gel together and work together. And that person who's maybe a different color is not your enemy, but is very much your companion or your friend, in that they are there to, in the military life, obviously, is that we are there to protect each other. Okay, we're doing a job all together, but in the same, we've got each other's back. So I enjoyed your story. It wasn't boring at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Sal. That's one of the reasons I was glad that you were here tonight. So it's never about the color of your skin. Having lived in Asia and being a minority there for several years, having lived in the Middle East with people of Iraqi descent, living with them for over a year, it's not about your skin color, it's about who you are as a person. And then after 21 years of being in the military, my perspective is it's about the content of your character. And yes, I'm quoting Martin Luther King, which is a discussion I had with my stepfather last night, who set me straight when I was young to that. And I'm glad he did, because the mindset is right and has helped get me where I am today. And I know you all have similar stories, so I don't mean to take up bandwidth about mine. I'm going to, because we're running over, I haven't hit this slide in a while, but looking at, we've been down to about 15 members showing up for Tribe Talk and Happy Hour. I want to hit one more time how we build the tribe, because over 400 people, actually 500 people now, get this email with notifications about regular Tribe Talk and Happy Hour on Wednesday nights. I'd really like to see our tribe grow. And so we can have these kind of discussions with everybody to improve the tribe. Next Tribe Talk, August 30th. If anybody has a topic they want to share, please get with me, because I'd rather not run all of these. I'm sure there's plenty of ideas out there. Please contact me so we have time to throw something together. And then, guess what? Something we haven't done on Wednesdays, but we used to do it when we do Tribe Talk on Sundays. What is it?
No.
Whoops, wrong one. Dang it.
Polls.
Yes.
What happened to the test?
The test. We got to do the test at the end, right? Here we go.
There we go.
Talk poll for 2 August 2020.
And his wife was.
For those who cannot see this because of their device, the first question is, to initiate motorcycle lean, you have to do one of these 5 things. Look where you want to go, and the motorcycle will steer itself to the point where you are looking. B, simultaneously press on the hand grip in the direction where you want to go while putting additional pressure on the outside footrest. C, press the hand grip in the direction you want to go and follow this with handlebar turn to match road speed and lean angle. D, lean the upper body opposite the direction you want to go while simultaneously turning the handlebars in the direction you want to go. And E, drop a knee to the inside of the direction of the lean and turn the handlebars only after lean is initiated. The second question, responsible motorcyclists are those who, A, learn to ride using the largest displacement motorcycle they can find. B, use the only original equipment manufactured parts when maintaining a motorcycle. C, when riding, and oftentimes when not riding, think about the risks and consequences associated with riding a motorcycle. D, hide among other traffic to be better seen by other highway users. And
What'd you say?
E, know your personal limits and ride over them only when it's safe.
No, Frederick. Yeah.
We're at about 63%.
F-R-I-D-E-R.
So I showed a T-shirt that I have, and I've only had one taker so far.
I would give you a hug, but you're so far away.
It was a black gentleman who I had sold a old tablet to, a tablet I hadn't used. It was brand new, really, but he was so excited that he had found it and he needed one. And he gave both my sister and me big hugs when we met to do the sale. Nobody else has even attempted.
I think I accidentally closed polling before people finished. Was there anybody that felt like I screwed you there? I apologize for that. Good poll results tonight. Can everybody see the results?
No, you're going to have to shout it out.
All right. So for the first question, to initiate motorcycle lien, 100% of the people who got on quick enough before I screwed them over had pressed the handle grip in the direction you want to go and follow this with handlebar turn to match road speed and lean angle. 100%. Good results. And then, excuse me while I'm making copies here. The second part, responsible motorcyclists are those who, just a little over 57% got the right answer. C, when riding and oftentimes when not riding, think about risks and consequences associated with riding a motorcycle. Funny, the only other answer chosen was no personal limits and rides over them only when it's safe. So interesting there. Let me make a copy of it.
And personally, I like A and D, but you can only vote for one, so I had to split the difference and go with C.
Don't you hate that? And I'll, just to let everybody know, this list of questions that I continually go back to was provided by Dr. Ray. So they were at one time used for rider coach trainer calibration, so to speak. That's all I have tonight. It is 9:13. I'm sorry I went over 13 minutes, but as always, it's a pleasure to spend time with you all. Any last minute throwouts for anybody there? You want to share anything with anybody? Carol, thanks for that shirt. If not, Tribe Talk happy hour, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern, typically for 2 hours. I'll be there as long as everybody else shows up. And then the next Tribe Talk, August 30th, looking for people with topics. If that's all, have a wonderful evening, and I'll go back to work.
Good seeing you again, Don.
Take care.